Manners and body language across cultures. What is body language?
Body language refers to the kinds of cultural differences in the ways in which people use their body. But sometimes it's very easy to misread cues. For example, there was a woman I know who was giving examples of active listening as a mode of being a good teacher. And active listening means, listening all the way. So she's had her students, who are all teachers, role play. One would be talking and the other would be listening. The one who was listening was sitting down. The one who was talking was standing up. The listener, in one case, was like this. Now, most of us have had a little bit of pop psychology, and most of us believe that when we have our hands crossed in front of us, it means we're resistant to that idea. We're rejecting that idea. And in fact, when the woman who was seated was confronted about how resistant she was, she says, "No, I'm not resistant. That's not true at all." But in Vietnam, when we cross our hands, it means that we're not being, fiddling and fidgeting, that we're giving you our entire attention. So it was really important in that class to show that there are different signals, that there are no universal body languages.
How do greetings differ among cultures?
I talked to a man, and he had gone to New Zealand, and he was in the airport, and he was so shocked because he saw a man waiting for a passenger to deplane. The passenger came out, and he was all dressed in a suit, and he carried a briefcase. And yet when they greeted, they pressed their heads together and their noses together, and he didn't know that that's a Maori form of greeting. That's how they greet one another, but there's a deeper meaning. They're actually inhaling their essence. And it's very much related to what we used to call the Eskimo kiss, but they're really inhaling. In Hawaii, the word that we take as a negative called haole, meaning Americans, and it's kind of negative, but it really means not of the same breath, because they used to greet that way too. They inhale one another. I've had Filipino students say they've gone to see their grandmother or grandmother for the first time back in the Philippines. You know what? She sniffed me. And it's that same thing. You learn a lot when you inhale the other person. You learn not so much about hygiene, but you learn that too, but you learn also about eating habits. Other places, they bow, especially Japanese. This weekend I was at the Japanese American Museum, and I ran into some friends who actually are Korean, the parents of a friend, and when they saw me, they did the bowing. Other people kiss on one cheek, kiss on two cheeks, sometimes kiss on three cheeks, and you have to say, let's see, are they a two-cheek or a three-cheek person?
How do I know how to greet someone of another culture?
I've had to learn, and, I always sort of hesitate and wait and see as a person, leaning forward. You have to understand, too, that customs change. When I was a youngster, women did not shake hands, and a man would only shake hands with a woman if she extended her hand first. And nowadays, women shake hands with women, and then there's the social, which became very popular when Jackie Kennedy was First Lady, because she was very continental, and so she knew about the protocols in Europe. So it's sort of tricky, and sometimes ask, and if not, then just take your chances. But it's better to have less body contact than more.
How do signs of affection differ among cultures?
in our society, we're so homophobic that if you see two women holding hands or two men holding hands, you just assume that it's a homosexual relationship. But most other parts of the world, it's just the opposite. And I've had students from China in particular tell me how upset they are, like two girls walking hand in hand, and they get upset because then they're accused of having a homosexual relationship. And no matter how they feel about it or not, it's just such a reverse kind of interpretation.
Why is touching the head considered threatening in some Asian cultures?
Particularly in Southeast Asia, the head is taboo because it's believed that somewhere here resides the spirit or the soul of the person. And it plays out in many different ways. For example, the Hmong people, who are originally from Laos, have that same belief. And there was a preschool here in the United States, and the new teacher had just come, and she had been given a very brief orientation, and she was to teach the children colors and parts of the body, and they have these outlines of the body, and she would say, color the hands orange, color the feet purple, color the clothes green, put brown eyes on the face. Children wouldn't do it. Put a red mouth. Children wouldn't do it. And everything that she asked them to do, every feature to put on this blank face, the children refused to do. She just couldn't understand what was going on. And then after class was over, the teacher said, "Oh, we forgot to tell you, the Hmong have a belief that the spirit resides in the head. The head is almost sacred, and you don't touch it, and you wouldn't color anything on the head either." Now, it's a very powerful belief, and it was really important because had she not known the belief, she would have thought the children were ignorant, they were rebellious, they refused to follow orders. But once that was explained to her, then it was cleared up. That's another reason why it's important to know multicultural manners, because it's so easy to misinterpret the behavior of others when you don't have the right background.
Which American gestures might be interpreted as obscene by other cultures?
I laughed the first time that President Clinton was nominated, because this was at the convention, and at the very end he went like this, and I thought, oh Lord, we've just lost some votes in the Middle East because this is an obscene gesture. In South America, this AOK is an obscene gesture. I had a student, she was from Afghanistan, and she's brilliant. And she went to the office at school to see if she had passed the test, and the teacher, the staff member, recognized by her name that she was not American born, and she wanted to let her know that she had passed the test. And so she went like this to her, and the girl was so devastated, she ran home and cried to her brother, and he laughed because he had been here longer. He understood she was just trying to convey that she had passed the test with flying colors. Pointing is very bad. I've had numerous people tell me. One in particular was a girl who worked in one of the gift shops in at Disneyland, and a family came in, I think she said from Japan. They wanted to know where the restroom was, and she said, it's over there. And they became so enraged because pointing was also an obscene gesture, as this is also an obscene gesture. And when I was teaching for a while as English as second language, I became so self-conscious of my gestures because the students were from all over, and it was so easy to offend them. I tried not to use my hands, which I ordinarily do, but you just have to be very careful.
What might a smile mean in other cultures?
You know, there are many books that say the smile is universal. Yes, it's a universal movement, but it's not universally interpreted. For example, Koreans believe that a smile is a sign of frivolity, that if something is important and serious, you don't smile too much. That same belief is held by the Japanese. In the old days, when they would take pictures of our diplomats with the Japanese diplomats, ours were always smiling and the others were not. And so people who saw that picture in the newspaper really thought, oh boy, I guess that meeting wasn't a success. They didn't realize that the Japanese were demonstrating how serious a matter this was. And now that's not so, because now they've learned that in order to convey the right feeling and let them know that it was a successful meeting, they have to smile. So it's very tricky. There are a lot of different meanings to a smile.
Why should I be careful when looking people from other cultures in the eye?
Americans believe that if you mean what you say, you look a person in the eye. And if somebody avoids contact, we interpret that very negatively. So this is just one example of a teacher calling one of her students up to talk to her and to explain something. The child was misbehaving, and it was a girl, and the girl was from Mexico. And the entire time that the girl was in front of her, the girl looked down. And the teacher scolded her and said, "Look me in the eye." And the girl didn't, and she went home and she told her mother, and this mother was very intelligent and came to school the next day and said, "My daughter did not look at you because she was paying you respect. She has never even looked her grandparents in the eye. And that is a sign of disrespect if she were to look you in the eye." Well, once the teacher understood that, she understood that. So, but we impose our beliefs on top of that. Now, among teenagers, if you stare somebody in the eye, that's an invitation to violence. It's sort of like daring them. It's called mad dogging. And if you go to Universal Studios, Universal City Walk, there's a sign that said no undue staring. So they understand that by staring, you're just sort of challenging another person.
How does listening posture differ among cultures?
Africans and African Americans will often look down when they are listening and look up when they're talking. We do the reverse. We look when, I'm going to get it wrong, we look when we're listening and look away when we're talking. And so they're just opposite. So if somebody looks away or looks down does not mean necessarily that they're disrespecting you or ignoring you, because if you're talking and I'm looking down, if I'm talking to you and you're looking down, I would think, oh, she's ignoring me, she's tuning me out.
How does physical modesty differ among cultures?
We have some interesting things in our culture at this time that relate to modesty. And I noticed it when I was looking for bathing suits online, that you get modest bathing wear for women that are geared towards either Latter-day Saints, meaning Mormons, they're more covered up, Muslims, more covered up, and Orthodox Jews, more covered up. And that's what they consider, respectable. In addition to which, there is a variation on Barbie for Muslims and Orthodox Jews. And the difference is the clothing. It's much more modest. And it's absolutely fascinating. It's taken quite a while for this to happen, but these dolls now reflect the wardrobe rules for particular denominations. But the Muslim and the Orthodox are practically the same in what they want covered up. You're not supposed to look, no cleavage, not much arm, mid-calf length, and for skirts and things. And it's fun to see, to explore online and see what's available. But basically, it's in our society, it's for the women. The men less so.